San Diego today sparkles as California's second largest city, a gleaming metropolis where naval vessels share the harbor with luxury yachts and where tech entrepreneurs sip craft beer just blocks from where Spanish conquistadors once planted their flags. But beneath this modern veneer lies a story that spans centuries, a tale of transformation so dramatic it would seem impossible if it weren't true. Tonight, we'll uncover how a remote Spanish outpost evolved into America's finest naval stronghold, and eventually into the economic powerhouse that defines Southern California today. San Diego has weathered colonial struggles, military buildups, real estate booms and busts, and countless reinventions to become one of the nation's most desirable cities. We'll start with the discovery that changed everything, and from there, we'll trace the relentless evolution of a place that refused to remain small. Just relax and let your mind drift as we explore the remarkable transformation of America's finest city. When you think of San Diego, perhaps you picture Balboa Park with its Spanish architecture gleaming in the California sun, or the bustling gas lamp quarter filled with tourists and locals alike. Maybe you envision the iconic Hotel del Coronado standing majestically on its pristine beach, or the sprawling naval base that has defined the city's skyline for generations. This city feels like it has always been destined for greatness, a natural harbour blessed by geography and climate. And indeed, San Diego Bay is one of the finest natural harbours on the entire Pacific coast. The bay stretches for 14 miles, protected from ocean swells by the Coronado Peninsula, creating calm waters that have welcomed ships for centuries. Standing on Point Loma today, gazing out over this magnificent harbour, you can almost sense the weight of history that has unfolded in these waters. But the San Diego we know today is relatively young compared to the layers of history beneath it. The downtown skyline, dominated by modern glass towers and luxury condominiums, has risen mostly within the last few decades. The naval installations that give the city its military character were built primarily in the 20th century. Even Balboa Park, with its timeless Spanish colonial revival buildings, was largely constructed for the 1915 Panama, California Exposition. Yet this land has been significant for far longer than these modern landmarks suggest. For thousands of years before European explorers ever glimpsed the Pacific, indigenous peoples called this coastal paradise home. The Kumeyaay people, skilled hunter-gatherers who understood the rhythms of this Mediterranean climate, established villages throughout the region long before recorded history began. They lived in harmony with the land, harvesting acorns from the oak trees that dotted the hillsides, fishing in the lagoons and bays, and trading with neighbouring tribes across vast networks that stretch from the desert to the sea. These communities thrived in an environment that provided abundant resources year-round. The mild climate meant survival was less about enduring harsh winters and more about understanding the subtle seasonal changes that brought different opportunities for food gathering and trade. The Kumeyaay developed sophisticated techniques for managing the landscape, using controlled burns to maintain oak groves and clear underbrush, creating park-like environments that early European visitors would mistake for natural wilderness. Archaeological evidence suggests that indigenous peoples lived in the San Diego area for at least 10,000 years, possibly much longer. They left behind shell middens that tell stories of countless generations who gathered shellfish from the tide pools and bays. Stone tools found throughout the region reveal advanced craftsmanship and trade relationships that connected coastal communities with inland and desert peoples. But this ancient way of life would face its greatest challenge in the 16th century, when European exploration of the Pacific began in earnest. The first European to lay eyes on San Diego Bay was Juan Rodrigues Cabrillo, a Portuguese explorer sailing under the Spanish flag. On September 28, 1542, Cabrillo's expedition entered the bay they named San Miguel. Unaware that they had just discovered what would become one of California's most important harbors. Cabrillo was part of Spain's ambitious effort to explore and claim the Pacific coast of North America. The Spanish Empire was at its zenith, flush with wealth from Mexican silver mines and eager to extend its dominion northward, along the coast they called Alta California. Cabrillo's mission was to map the coastline and search for the fabled Northwest Passage that might connect the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The expedition spent 6 days in San Diego Bay, making contact with the Kumeyaay people who paddled out to meet these strange visitors in their massive wooden ships. The encounters were initially peaceful, with both sides curious about the other. The Spanish marveled at the indigenous people's skills with their sewn plank canoes, while the Kumeyaay likely wondered at the pale-skinned strangers and their floating fortresses. But Cabrillo's time in San Diego was brief. The explorer was driven by the same restless ambition that characterized Spanish exploration of the era. After noting the excellent harbour and the friendly disposition of the local people, the expedition sailed north, continuing their search for treasure and passage routes. Cabrillo himself would never see Spain again. He died during the expedition after suffering an injury on San Miguel Island, and command passed to his pilot, Bartolomé Ferrer. The expedition eventually reached as far north as Oregon before turning back, but they had accomplished something momentous. They had put San Diego on the map of the known world. Yet despite this early contact, San Diego would remain largely untouched by European influence for more than 2 centuries. The Spanish Empire had vast territories to administer, and a remote bay on the far edge of the Pacific seemed less important than the silver mines of Mexico or the trade routes across the Atlantic. This changed dramatically in the 18th century when international competition for the Pacific intensified. By the 1760s, Spanish officials in Mexico City were growing increasingly concerned about foreign encroachment on their Pacific territories. Russian fur traders were expanding south from Alaska, establishing settlements along the northern California coast. British and Dutch explorers were probing the Pacific, searching for new trade routes and territorial opportunities. Most alarming of all, there were rumours that other European powers might attempt to establish bases along the California coast. The Spanish response was characteristically ambitious and systematic. Rather than simply sending occasional expeditions to assert their claims, they decided to establish permanent settlements along the entire California coast. This colonization effort would require missions to convert the indigenous peoples, presidios to provide military protection, and pueblos to support civilian populations. The man chosen to lead this monumental undertaking was Gaspar de Portola, a Spanish military officer with experience in colonial administration. Working alongside him was Father Junipero Serra, a Franciscan missionary whose zealous dedication to converting indigenous peoples would leave an indelible mark on California history. In 1769, the sacred expedition set out from Baja California with the goal of establishing Spanish settlements as far north as Monterey Bay. The expedition was actually divided into 4 groups, 2 travelling by land and 2 by sea, all converging on San Diego Bay as their first major staging point. The sea expeditions faced the most immediate challenges. The ships San Carlos and San Antonio battled contrary winds, rough seas, and the ever-present threat of scurvy during their voyages north. Many crew members fell ill during the journey, and by the time both ships reached San Diego Bay, their crews were severely weakened. The land expeditions, meanwhile, struggled across the harsh deserts and mountains of Baja California, dealing with water shortages, difficult terrain, and the challenge of moving livestock and supplies across hundreds of miles of largely unmapped territory. When Portola's land expedition finally reached San Diego Bay on June 29, 1769, they found a natural harbour that exceeded all their expectations. The bay was deep enough for large ships, protected from ocean storms, and surrounded by hills that would provide excellent defensive positions. The climate was remarkably pleasant. The soil appeared fertile, and fresh water was available from the San Diego River. On July 16, 1769, Father Serra celebrated the first Mass at what would become Mission San Diego de Alcala, officially founding both the mission and the presidio that would anchor Spanish settlement in the region. This moment marked the true beginning of San Diego as a European settlement, the first permanent colonial outpost in what would eventually become California. But establishing a successful colony proved far more difficult than planting a flag and saying a prayer. The early years of Spanish San Diego were marked by constant struggle and frequent conflict. The colonists faced shortages of food, medicine, and basic supplies, as the supply ships from Mexico often arrived months late, or not at all. The harsh reality of frontier life meant that survival, not prosperity, was the primary concern for these early settlers. Relations with the Kumeyaay people were complex and often tense. While some indigenous individuals were drawn to the mission and converted to Christianity, many others viewed the Spanish presence as an unwelcome intrusion on their ancestral lands. The mission system itself was designed to fundamentally transform indigenous society, concentrating scattered tribal groups into mission communities where they would learn European agricultural techniques, crafts, and religious practices. This cultural transformation was neither smooth nor voluntary. Many Kumeyaay resisted the mission system, sometimes through passive resistance, sometimes through open rebellion. In November 1775, the tensions erupted into violence when a large group of Kumeyaay warriors attacked Mission San Diego, burning most of the buildings and killing Father Luis Jaime, making him California's first Christian martyr. The attack was a devastating blow to the young settlement. The mission had to be rebuilt, and Spanish authorities responded by strengthening the military presence and moving the mission several miles inland to a more defensible location. The presidio was expanded and better fortified, establishing a pattern of military vigilance that would characterize San Diego for generations to come. Despite these early challenges, the Spanish gradually established a functioning colonial society in San Diego. The mission system, for all its controversial aspects, did succeed in creating a new economic foundation for the region. Indigenous peoples learned European farming techniques and crafts, while Spanish colonists adapted to local conditions and resources. The presidio grew into a small but strategically important military outpost, garrisoned by soldiers who were responsible for protecting not just San Diego, but the entire southern approach to Spanish California. These soldiers lived with their families in simple adobe houses within the presidio walls, creating a tight-knit military community that would influence San Diego's character for decades. By the early 1800s, Spanish San Diego had evolved into a modest but stable frontier settlement. The mission controlled thousands of acres and maintained large herds of cattle, sheep, and horses. The presidio provided security and served as the administrative center for the region. A small civilian population had begun to establish itself, creating the foundations of what would eventually become a major city. Yet even as Spanish San Diego found its footing, larger forces were already at work that would soon transform the entire region once again. The early 19th century brought winds of change that would reshape not just San Diego, but the entire fabric of colonial life throughout the Americas. In Mexico, revolutionary fervor was building against Spanish rule, and these distant rumblings would soon reach even the remote outposts of Alta California. The Mexican War of Independence, which began in 1810, created years of political uncertainty that rippled across the Pacific to San Diego's shores. Supply ships from Mexico became even more irregular as the colonial government struggled with internal rebellion. The presidio soldiers often went months without pay, and the missions found themselves increasingly isolated from their administrative centers. During these turbulent years, San Diego's residents learned to become more self-sufficient. The mission expanded its agricultural operations, developing extensive vineyards and orchards that took advantage of the region's Mediterranean climate. Cattle ranching became increasingly important, not just for local consumption, but as a foundation for trade with foreign merchants who occasionally appeared in the bay. When Mexico finally achieved independence from Spain in 1821, San Diego found itself part of a new nation with dramatically different ideas about governance, religion, and economic development. The Mexican period would prove to be one of the most transformative eras in San Diego's long history. The new Mexican government brought sweeping changes to California's colonial structure. Most significantly, the powerful mission system that had dominated the region for more than 50 years began to crumble under new policies of secularization. Starting in the 1830s, the Mexican government systematically transferred mission lands to private ownership, breaking up the vast religious estates that had controlled much of California's agricultural wealth. In San Diego, this transformation created opportunities for a new class of landowners who would shape the region's development for generations. Mexican citizens and naturalized foreigners could now petition for enormous land grants, some encompassing tens of thousands of acres. These ranchos became the foundation of a pastoral economy based on cattle ranching and hide production. The rancho system created a romantic period in San Diego's history that would later be mythologized as the golden age of Spanish California. Wealthy rancheros built sprawling adobe haciendas surrounded by vast herds of cattle that grazed on seemingly endless grasslands. These cattle were valued primarily for their hides and tallow, which were traded to American and British merchants who sailed around Cape Horn to reach California's markets. The hide trade brought San Diego its first taste of international commerce on a significant scale. Ships from Boston, New York, and London regularly anchored in the bay, creating a bustling trade that connected this remote corner of Mexico to global markets. The rancheros would drive their cattle to San Diego Bay, where the animals were slaughtered and their hides processed for export. In return, the ships brought manufactured goods, luxury items, and news from the outside world. This period saw the emergence of some of San Diego's most influential families. The Estudillo family established Rancho San Diego, controlling vast territories that stretched from the bay to the mountains. The Bandini family built Casa de Bandini in what is now Old Town, creating a social center that attracted visitors from throughout California and beyond. These families intermarried with American traders and sea captains, creating a cosmopolitan society that blended Mexican, American, and European influences. Yet beneath this prosperity lay growing tensions that would ultimately lead to another dramatic transformation. The Mexican government's control over its northern territories was always tenuous. Distance, poor communications, and limited military resources meant that California often operated with considerable autonomy. As more American settlers arrived in California, drawn by opportunities in trade and land speculation, the cultural balance began to shift. Many of these American immigrants became Mexican citizens and integrated into local society, marrying into prominent families and establishing successful businesses. But others maintained strong ties to the United States and began to advocate for American territorial expansion. The concept of manifest destiny was gaining momentum in the United States, and California's strategic location and natural resources made it an increasingly attractive target for American ambitions. The situation became more volatile in the 1840s as tensions between Mexico and the United States escalated over Texas and other territorial disputes. In California, a growing number of American settlers began to organize resistance to Mexican authority, culminating in the Bear Flag Revolt of 1846. San Diego played a crucial role in the military campaigns that followed. When the Mexican-American War officially began in 1846, American naval forces quickly moved to secure California's ports. The USS Scion sailed into San Diego Bay and captured the town without resistance, raising the American flag over the Presidio for the first time. But Mexican forces were not prepared to surrender California without a fight. Under the leadership of commanders like Andrés Pico, Mexican and Californio forces launched a series of counterattacks that temporarily reclaimed much of Southern California, including San Diego. The Battle of San Pascual, fought in December 1846 just northeast of San Diego, became one of the most significant military engagements in California during the war. American forces under General Stephen Kearny, who had marched across the desert from New Mexico, encountered fierce resistance from California lancers. The Americans suffered heavy casualties in what was technically a Mexican victory, but they ultimately continued their advance toward San Diego. The siege that followed demonstrated San Diego's growing strategic importance. American forces fortified themselves on Presidio Hill, while Mexican forces controlled the surrounding countryside. For several weeks, the outcome remained uncertain as both sides maneuvered for advantage in the hills and valleys around the bay. The arrival of American reinforcements by sea finally tipped the balance. Commodore Robert Stockton landed additional troops and supplies, breaking the siege and securing American control over San Diego. From this base, American forces launched the final campaign that would complete the conquest of California. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed in February 1848, officially transferred California to the United States. But the transformation of San Diego from Mexican pueblo to American city would take years to complete. The transition period was marked by legal confusion, cultural conflict, and economic uncertainty as residents adapted to new laws, new opportunities, and new challenges. For the California families who had dominated the Rancho period, American rule brought both opportunities and losses. While the treaty guaranteed their property rights, the new legal system required expensive court proceedings to confirm land titles. Many families found themselves spending years and fortunes in legal battles, often losing substantial portions of their holdings to American lawyers and speculators who understood the new system better. The discovery of gold in Northern California in 1848 created the first major economic boom in American San Diego, though the city was far from the goldfields. San Diego Bay became an important supply point for prospectors traveling overland from the east, and the city's merchants profited from outfitting 49ers with supplies and equipment. More importantly, the gold rush brought the first significant wave of American settlement to San Diego. The population, which had remained relatively stable at a few hundred residents during the Mexican period, began to grow rapidly as entrepreneurs, speculators, and ordinary citizens arrived seeking opportunities in the new American territory. The establishment of American institutions transformed daily life in San Diego. The first American school opened in 1851, teaching children in English rather than Spanish. Protestant churches were established alongside the old Catholic mission, reflecting the religious diversity of the new population. American-style businesses replaced many of the informal trading relationships that had characterized the Mexican period. The most dramatic change came with California's statehood in 1850, which brought San Diego into the American political system. The city was incorporated in 1850, becoming one of the first incorporated cities in the new state. Local government, based on American legal traditions, replaced the informal leadership structures that had evolved during the Mexican period. Yet San Diego's transition to American rule was neither immediate nor complete. The city retained much of its Mexican character throughout the 1850s and 1860s. Spanish continued to be widely spoken, adobe architecture dominated the landscape, and many customs from the Rancho period persisted alongside new American influences. The real transformation would come with the arrival of the railroad, an event that would finally connect San Diego to the broader American economy and set the stage for the city's emergence as a major Pacific port. Throughout the 1870s, railroad development became the dominant issue in San Diego politics and planning. The completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869 had connected California to the rest of the nation, but San Diego remained isolated at the end of a branch line that seemed to lead nowhere. City leaders understood that their community's future depended on establishing better transportation links to the outside world. The first significant railroad connection came in 1885 when the California Southern Railway finally linked San Diego to the transcontinental system via a connection through Riverside and San Bernardino. The arrival of the first through train was celebrated as the most important event in the city's history, and indeed it marked the beginning of San Diego's transformation from isolated frontier town to modern American city. The railroad connection triggered San Diego's first major real estate boom, as speculators and developers recognized the potential of this strategically located port city. Land prices soared, new neighborhoods were platted, and the population grew rapidly as people arrived from across the United States seeking opportunities in California's newest boom town. The boom of the 1880s transformed San Diego's physical landscape almost overnight. Developers carved new streets through the hills surrounding the bay, creating neighborhoods with names that reflected the city's aspirations rather than its modest reality. Additions like University Heights and Golden Hill sprouted from former cattle pastures, their optimistic titles suggesting a metropolitan future that few could have imagined just a decade earlier. Real estate speculation reached fever pitch as Eastern investors poured money into San Diego properties they had never seen. Entire subdivisions were sold through promotional materials that painted the city as a tropical paradise, where fortunes could be made simply by purchasing the right lot at the right time. The promotional campaigns were so successful that trains arriving from the east often carried more passengers than the local hotels could accommodate. The city's population exploded from roughly 2,600 residents in 1880 to more than 16,000 by 1885. This growth brought both opportunities and challenges as San Diego struggled to build the infrastructure necessary to support its rapidly expanding population. New schools, churches, and commercial buildings rose throughout the city, while entrepreneurs established businesses to serve the growing community. The boom also attracted some of the most colourful characters in California history. Promoters like John D. Spreckels, heir to a sugar fortune, began investing heavily in San Diego real estate and development projects. Spreckels would eventually become one of the city's most influential figures, controlling everything from the local streetcar system to major hotels and the city's primary newspaper. But the boom of the 1880s proved to be built on speculation rather than solid economic foundations. When the national economy faltered in the late 1880s, San Diego's real estate market collapsed almost as quickly as it had risen. Property values plummeted, development projects were abandoned, and many of the Eastern investors who had fueled the boom lost substantial sums. The bust taught San Diego important lessons about the dangers of relying too heavily on speculation and outside investment. City leaders began to focus on building more diversified economic foundations, particularly by developing the city's natural advantages as a port and taking advantage of its exceptional climate for agriculture and tourism. The 1890s marked a period of consolidation and more sustainable growth. While the city's population growth slowed considerably, San Diego began to develop the industries and institutions that would support long-term prosperity. The fishing industry expanded as entrepreneurs recognized the potential of the city's coastal location and abundant marine resources. Agriculture also began to flourish as farmers discovered that San Diego's climate was ideal for crops that could not be grown successfully in other parts of the country. Citrus groves spread across the mesas and valleys surrounding the city, creating a new agricultural economy that would remain important for decades. The development of irrigation systems allowed farmers to cultivate previously dry lands, expanding the agricultural potential of the entire region. Tourism emerged as another promising industry during this period. The completion of the Hotel del Coronado in 1888 established San Diego as a destination for wealthy travelers seeking to escape harsh eastern winters. The hotel's distinctive red turrets and sprawling beachfront location created an iconic image that helped market San Diego as a year-round resort destination. The Spanish-American War of 1898 brought unexpected opportunities for San Diego's development. The city's excellent harbour and strategic Pacific location made it an ideal base for military operations, and the Navy began to take serious interest in San Diego as a potential site for permanent installations. During the war, San Diego Bay bustled with military activity as ships prepared for operations in the Philippines and other Pacific territories. Local businesses profited from supplying the military, and many residents got their first taste of the economic benefits that military spending could bring to the community. The war also demonstrated San Diego's potential as a major Pacific port. Military planners recognized that the city's location made it an ideal staging point for operations throughout the Pacific, and discussions began about establishing permanent naval facilities in the bay. As the 19th century drew to a close, San Diego had evolved from a sleepy frontier town into a small but growing American city with clear competitive advantages. The city's population had stabilized at around 17,000 residents, and the local economy was becoming more diversified and sustainable than it had been during the speculative boom of the 1880s. The arrival of the 20th century would bring challenges and opportunities that would test everything San Diego had learned about growth, development, and economic sustainability. The new century would see the city emerge as a major naval center, a tourist destination of international renown, and eventually as one of the most important cities on the entire Pacific coast. But first, San Diego would have to navigate the complexities of progressive-era politics, the economic disruptions of 2 world wars, and the challenge of managing growth while preserving the natural beauty and pleasant climate that made the city attractive in the first place. The early years of the 20th century saw San Diego's leaders wrestling with fundamental questions about the city's future direction. Should San Diego focus on becoming a major industrial center, taking advantage of its port facilities and railroad connections? Should the city emphasize tourism and capitalize on its climate and natural beauty? Or should San Diego pursue a more balanced approach that combined multiple economic strategies? These debates were complicated by the city's ongoing infrastructure challenges. Despite the growth of the previous decades, San Diego still lacked many of the basic services that residents of major cities took for granted. The water supply system was inadequate for the growing population, the electrical grid was unreliable, and the road system remained largely unpaved outside the central business district. The most pressing issue was water. San Diego's location in a semi-arid climate meant that reliable water supplies were essential for any kind of sustained growth. The city had initially depended on wells in the San Diego River, but these sources proved inadequate as the population expanded. Without a reliable water supply, San Diego's growth potential would remain severely limited. The solution came through one of the most ambitious engineering projects in Southern California history. City leaders, working with private investors, developed plans for a massive aqueduct system that would bring water from the Colorado River across more than 200 miles of desert and mountains to San Diego County. The San Diego Flume Company, established in 1886, represented the first major attempt to address the water crisis. The company built a remarkable wooden flume system that carried water from mountain streams in the Cuyamaca Mountains to the city. While innovative, this system provided only a partial solution to San Diego's water needs. More comprehensive solutions would require cooperation between multiple communities and massive capital investments that were beyond the resources of any single city. The development of reliable water supplies would become a recurring theme in San Diego's growth throughout the 20th century, influencing everything from residential development patterns to industrial planning. The question of San Diego's economic future was partially answered by external events that the city's leaders could neither control nor predict. The opening of the Panama Canal in 1914 suddenly made San Diego's Pacific location far more valuable than anyone had previously imagined. The canal meant that ships traveling between the Atlantic and Pacific coasts no longer had to make the dangerous and time-consuming journey around Cape Horn. San Diego's position as the first major American port north of the canal made it an ideal stopping point for ships entering Pacific trade routes. City leaders quickly recognized this opportunity and began lobbying for major port improvements that would allow San Diego to handle increased shipping traffic. The development of modern port facilities became a top priority as the city prepared to compete with Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle for Pacific shipping business. But the most significant development of this period was not related to shipping or trade. It was the growing interest of the United States Navy in San Diego as a potential site for major Pacific installations. Naval interest in San Diego had been growing since the Spanish-American War, but it accelerated significantly in the early 1900s as American foreign policy became more focused on the Pacific. The acquisition of the Philippines, Hawaii, and other Pacific territories meant that the Navy needed bases that could support operations across the vast Pacific Ocean. San Diego's harbour was nearly ideal for naval purposes. The bay was large enough to accommodate the largest warships. It was naturally protected from storms and enemy attack, and it was located close enough to major shipping lanes to be strategically valuable, but far enough from international borders to be secure. The city's climate was another major advantage for naval operations. Unlike bases in the northeast, San Diego offered year-round training opportunities and required less maintenance of ships and equipment. The pleasant weather also made San Diego an attractive assignment for naval personnel, which helped with recruitment and retention. In 1907, the Navy established a coaling station in San Diego Bay, marking the beginning of what would become one of the largest naval complexes in the world. The coaling station was a modest facility, but it represented the Navy's commitment to maintaining a permanent presence in San Diego. The establishment of naval facilities triggered another wave of growth and development in San Diego. The Navy brought steady employment, reliable government contracts for local businesses, and a growing population of military personnel and their families. Unlike the boom and bust cycles that had characterized previous periods of growth, military spending provided a more stable foundation for economic development. Local businesses quickly adapted to serve the needs of the military community. Restaurants, shops, and entertainment venues catered to sailors and Marines on liberty, creating a vibrant downtown district that would become famous throughout the Pacific Fleet. The Navy's presence also attracted other military services to San Diego. The Marine Corps established training facilities in the area, taking advantage of the varied terrain and excellent weather for military exercises. The Army also maintained installations in San Diego, creating a multi-service military community that would grow steadily throughout the century. By 1910, San Diego had emerged as a city with a clear, competitive advantage in the military sector. The combination of excellent harbour facilities, ideal climate, and strategic location made the city increasingly important to American defence planning. This military foundation would prove to be one of the most important factors in San Diego's 20th century development. But San Diego's leaders were not content to rely solely on military spending for the city's economic future. They recognized that a truly successful city needed a diversified economic base that could weather changes in government spending and military priorities. Tourism remained an important part of the city's economic strategy. The success of the Hotel del Coronado had demonstrated that San Diego could attract wealthy visitors from across the country, and city leaders worked to build on this foundation. New hotels were constructed, promotional campaigns were launched, and special events were organized to showcase the city's attractions. Agriculture continued to expand as farmers discovered new crops that thrived in San Diego's climate. Avocados, which had been introduced from Mexico, proved particularly successful and eventually became one of the county's most important agricultural products. The development of refrigerated railroad cars made it possible to ship fresh produce to eastern markets, opening new opportunities for San Diego farmers. The city also began to develop small manufacturing industries that took advantage of its location and transportation connections. Food processing, particularly of agricultural products, became an important sector. Small shipbuilding operations emerged to serve both military and civilian markets. As San Diego entered the 1910s, the city had established itself as a growing regional center with multiple economic foundations. The population had reached approximately 40,000 residents, making San Diego a significant city by the standards of the American West. More importantly, the city had developed the infrastructure and institutions necessary to support continued growth. The completion of the San Diego and Arizona Railway in 1919 provided the city with its first direct rail connection to the east that did not require routing through Los Angeles. This transportation improvement reduced shipping costs and travel times, making San Diego more competitive with other West Coast cities. But the most dramatic demonstration of San Diego's growing importance came with the decision to host the Panama California Exposition in 1915. This international fair was designed to celebrate the opening of the Panama Canal and to showcase San Diego as the first American port of call for ships traveling north from the canal. The exposition required massive investments in infrastructure and facilities. Balboa Park was transformed from rough scrubland into an elaborate showcase featuring Spanish colonial revival architecture that would become one of San Diego's most distinctive features. The buildings constructed for the fair were so successful that many were preserved and continue to define the park's character today. The exposition attracted more than 3 million visitors to San Diego during 1915 and 1916, providing unprecedented exposure for the city. Many visitors were impressed enough by what they saw to return as residents or investors, contributing to another wave of growth and development. More importantly, the exposition established San Diego's reputation as a city capable of hosting major international events. The success of the fair demonstrated that San Diego had evolved from a frontier town into a sophisticated city that could compete with much larger metropolitan areas for major projects and investments. As the United States entered World War I in 1917, San Diego was positioned to play an important role in the war effort. The city's naval facilities were expanded rapidly to support Pacific operations, and the local economy benefited from increased military spending and activity. The war years marked the beginning of San Diego's emergence as a major military center. What had started as a modest coaling station grew into a complex of bases and training facilities that would eventually become central to American naval operations in the Pacific. But the war also highlighted some of San Diego's ongoing challenges. The rapid growth of the military population strained housing, transportation, and other infrastructure systems. City leaders realized that managing growth effectively would be crucial to San Diego's long-term success. The end of World War I brought both opportunities and uncertainties. Military spending decreased as the nation demobilized, But San Diego had established itself as too important strategically to be abandoned. The Navy maintained significant operations in the city, providing a foundation for continued growth. The 1920s would prove to be one of the most important decades in San Diego's history, a period when the city would finally emerge from its frontier past and establish itself as a major American metropolis. The combination of military importance, tourist appeal, and strategic location would drive unprecedented growth and development. But success would also bring new challenges. How could San Diego manage rapid population growth while preserving the natural beauty and pleasant lifestyle that made the city attractive? How could the city develop economically without becoming dependent on any single industry or employer? These questions would define San Diego's development strategies for decades to come. The answers would emerge through a combination of careful planning, fortunate circumstances, and the hard work of thousands of residents who shared a vision of San Diego as one of America's great cities. The foundation had been laid through centuries of gradual development, but the most dramatic chapters of San Diego's story were still to come. Of San Diego's story was still to. The 1920s arrived in San Diego like a warm Pacific breeze, carrying with it possibilities that seemed as limitless as the horizon beyond Point Loma. The decade would transform the city from a regional outpost into a genuine metropolis. But this transformation would not unfold in the orderly fashion that city planners might have preferred. Aviation emerged as one of the most exciting and unexpected developments of the era. Ryan Airlines, a small company founded by T. Claude Ryan, began manufacturing aircraft in a converted cannery building downtown. Few could have predicted that this modest operation would soon produce one of the most famous airplanes in history. In 1927, a young aviator named Charles Lindbergh arrived in San Diego with an audacious plan. He wanted Ryan Airlines to build him a custom aircraft capable of flying non-stop from New York to Paris, a feat that many aviation experts considered impossible. Working around the clock, Ryan's team produced the Spirit of St. Louis in just 60 days. When Lindbergh successfully completed his transatlantic flight, San Diego suddenly found itself at the center of the aviation world. The city that had built Lindbergh's plane became synonymous with innovation and daring, qualities that would attract aerospace companies and engineers for decades to come. The success of the Spirit of St. Louis demonstrated that San Diego possessed the technical expertise and entrepreneurial spirit necessary to compete in emerging industries. Local businessmen began investing in aviation companies, recognizing that the city's year-round flying weather and open spaces made it ideal for aircraft manufacturing and testing. Consolidated Aircraft Corporation, founded by Reuben Fleet, relocated to San Diego in 1935, establishing the foundation for what would become one of the world's largest aerospace complexes. The company chose San Diego specifically because of the city's climate, which allowed for year-round testing and production, and its proximity to Navy installations that provided ready customers for military aircraft. The aviation industry brought a new type of worker to San Diego: skilled engineers, technicians, and assembly workers who represented a more educated and higher-paid workforce than the city had previously attracted. These workers demanded better housing, schools, and cultural amenities, driving improvements throughout the metropolitan area. Real estate development accelerated to accommodate the growing population, but this time the growth was more carefully planned than the speculative booms of earlier decades. Developers like John D. Spreckels created entire communities with coordinated architecture and comprehensive amenities. The La Jolla area emerged as one of the most prestigious addresses in Southern California, attracting wealthy retirees and successful businessmen who built elaborate estates overlooking the Pacific. The community's restrictive covenants and careful planning created a model for upscale development that would be copied throughout the region. Downtown San Diego underwent its own transformation during the 1920s. The completion of new office buildings and department stores created a proper business district, while the construction of the California Theater and other entertainment venues established a cultural center that could compete with larger cities. The city's population grew from approximately 75,000 in 1920 to more than 147,000 by 1930, representing the largest decade of growth in San Diego's history to that point. This expansion required massive investments in infrastructure, from water and sewer systems to schools and hospitals. The water situation, which had constrained growth for decades, finally received a comprehensive solution with the completion of the San Diego County Water Authority's first major aqueduct projects. These engineering marvels brought reliable water supplies from distant sources, removing one of the primary obstacles to continued expansion. Public transportation systems expanded to serve the growing metropolitan area. The San Diego Electric Railway, controlled by John Spreckels, operated an extensive network of streetcar and bus lines that connected downtown San Diego with surrounding communities as far away as Oceanside and El Cajon. Tourism continued to flourish as improved transportation made San Diego more accessible to visitors from across the country. The completion of Highway 101 provided automobile tourists with a scenic route along the coast, while the expansion of rail services brought more visitors by train. The city's hotel industry expanded rapidly to accommodate growing numbers of visitors. The U.S. Grant Hotel, completed in 1910, had established San Diego's reputation for luxury accommodations, and new hotels continued this tradition while serving different market segments. Beach communities like Mission Beach and Pacific Beach developed into popular destinations for both visitors and residents. The construction of the Mission Beach Amusement Center created a seaside entertainment district that attracted families from throughout Southern California. But San Diego's growth during the 1920s was not without its challenges and controversies. The rapid expansion strained city services and created conflicts between long-time residents and newcomers with different ideas about development and governance. Housing shortages became chronic as population growth outpaced construction. Many workers found themselves living in substandard conditions or commuting long distances from affordable housing in outlying areas. The city's first significant slums developed in areas that lacked proper planning and infrastructure. Racial and ethnic tensions also emerged as the city's population became more diverse. Mexican immigration increased significantly during the decade as workers arrived to fill jobs in agriculture, construction, and service industries. While this immigration provided essential labor for the growing economy, it also created social tensions in a city that had been predominantly white. The city's small but growing African American community faced severe discrimination in housing and employment. Restrictive covenants prevented black families from purchasing homes in most neighborhoods, concentrating them in a few areas that often lacked adequate services and infrastructure. These social challenges were complicated by the economic uncertainties that began emerging toward the end of the decade. The stock market crash of 1929 had immediate effects on San Diego's real estate market, as Eastern investors pulled back from California projects and local speculators found themselves overextended. The Great Depression hit San Diego with devastating force in the early 1930s. Construction projects were cancelled, businesses closed, and unemployment soared. The city's population growth slowed dramatically as people stopped moving to California, and some residents left in search of opportunities elsewhere. Banks failed throughout the region, wiping out the savings of many families and businesses. The collapse of the real estate market left developers bankrupt and created a surplus of empty lots and unfinished buildings that would scar the landscape for years. Local government struggled to provide services as tax revenues plummeted. The city was forced to cut spending on everything from street maintenance to library hours, creating a downward spiral that made economic recovery more difficult. Yet San Diego possessed certain advantages that helped the city weather the Depression better than many other communities. The military presence provided stable employment that was largely immune to economic fluctuations. Naval spending actually increased during the 1930s as international tensions grew and the Navy expanded its Pacific operations. The Works Progress Administration and other New Deal programs brought federal investment to San Diego, funding projects that employed thousands of workers while improving the city's infrastructure. The construction of Balboa Park's additional buildings, improvements to the harbour, and the development of new recreational facilities provided both immediate employment and long-term benefits. Tourism proved to be surprisingly resilient during the Depression. While luxury travel declined, San Diego's affordable accommodations and free attractions like beaches and parks made it an attractive destination for budget-conscious travelers. The city's promotional efforts emphasized value and accessibility, helping maintain visitor numbers even during the worst economic years. Agriculture also provided stability during the economic crisis. San Diego County's diverse agricultural economy, based on crops like citrus, avocados, and vegetables, continued to supply both local and distant markets. The development of truck farming, which supplied fresh produce to Los Angeles, created new opportunities for small-scale farmers. The aviation industry, despite the overall economic downturn, continued to grow in San Diego. Military contracts for aircraft production provided steady work, while the city's excellent flying conditions attracted pilot training programs and aircraft testing operations. By the mid-1930s, San Diego was beginning to recover from the worst effects of the Depression. The city's economy was more diversified than it had been in the 1920s, with stronger foundations in manufacturing, military services, and tourism. The recovery accelerated dramatically as international tensions increased and the United States began preparing for what many observers believed would be another world war. San Diego's strategic location and established military facilities made it a natural choice for expanded defense spending. The Navy began a massive expansion of its San Diego operations, constructing new bases, training facilities, and housing for the growing number of military personnel. These projects employed thousands of workers and attracted additional businesses to serve the military community. Aircraft manufacturing expanded rapidly as companies like Consolidated Aircraft received large contracts for military planes. The skilled workforce that had been idle during the Depression found new opportunities in the growing defense industries. By 1940, San Diego's population had recovered to pre-Depression levels and was growing rapidly once again. The city had learned important lessons about economic diversification and the dangers of speculative growth, lessons that would guide development policies for decades to come. The approach of World War II would bring unprecedented growth and change to San Diego. The city that had struggled through the Depression would emerge from the war as one of the most important military and industrial centers on the West Coast. But this transformation would come at a cost. The rapid wartime growth would strain the city's infrastructure, alter its social fabric, and create challenges that would influence San Diego's development for generations. The sleepy resort town that had charmed visitors in the 1920s would disappear forever, replaced by a dynamic metropolitan area that would play an increasingly important role in America's Pacific future. The foundation for this transformation had been laid through decades of gradual development, false starts, and hard-learned lessons. San Diego had evolved from a Spanish mission to a Mexican rancho center, to an American frontier town, to a growing regional city. Each phase had contributed essential elements to the city's character and capabilities. As the 1940s began, San Diego stood poised for the most dramatic transformation in its long history. The city possessed excellent natural advantages, a diversified economic base, and the infrastructure necessary to support major expansion. Most importantly, San Diego had developed the leadership and civic institutions capable of managing rapid growth while preserving the qualities that made the city attractive to residents and visitors alike. The stage was set for San Diego's emergence as a major American metropolis, but no one could have predicted just how dramatic and far-reaching that transformation would prove to be. The attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, transformed San Diego overnight from a growing regional center into one of the most strategically important cities in America. Within hours of the Japanese assault, the city's naval facilities were placed on high alert, and plans that had been developing for months suddenly became urgent priorities, requiring immediate implementation. The Navy's expansion in San Diego during World War II defied all previous scales of development. What had been a modest naval presence became the headquarters for the entire Pacific Fleet, with Admiral Chester Nimitz directing operations from facilities that grew almost daily to accommodate the massive wartime build-up. Consolidated Aircraft, which had been producing planes at a steady pace during the late 1930s, suddenly found itself with contracts that seemed impossible to fulfill. The company's workforce exploded from a few thousand employees to more than 40,000 by 1943, making it one of the largest employers on the West Coast. The famous B-24 Liberator bomber rolled off Consolidated's assembly lines at a pace that amazed even experienced aircraft manufacturers. At peak production, the San Diego plant was completing one B-24 every hour, a manufacturing feat that required completely reimagining how airplanes could be built. This industrial transformation brought people to San Diego from every corner of America. Farm workers from the Dust Bowl, factory workers from Detroit, and office workers from New York all converged on the city seeking high-paying jobs in the defense industries. The city's population nearly doubled between 1940 and 1945, creating challenges that tested every aspect of municipal planning and administration. Housing became the most immediate crisis. The existing residential stock, built for a city of 200,000 people, suddenly had to accommodate more than 400,000 residents. Construction crews worked around the clock to build new neighborhoods, but they could not keep pace with the influx of workers and their families. The federal government stepped in with massive housing projects designed to shelter defense workers. Linda Vista, Claremont, and other planned communities emerged from former agricultural land, creating entire neighborhoods with coordinated architecture and comprehensive amenities that would set new standards for suburban development. These wartime communities were remarkable for their social diversity. Engineers and assembly line workers, officers and enlisted men, people from different regions and backgrounds, all lived in close proximity, creating a social mixing that had rarely occurred in American cities before the war. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, as traditional gender roles collapsed under the pressure of wartime production demands. The famous Rosie the Riveter was as much a San Diego phenomenon as a national one, as thousands of women learned skilled trades and earned wages that had previously been available only to men. The aircraft plants operated 3 shifts around the clock, creating a city that never slept. Restaurants, shops, and entertainment venues adapted to serve workers at all hours, fundamentally changing the rhythm of urban life in San Diego. Transportation systems struggled to accommodate the massive population increase. The streetcar and bus networks, designed for a much smaller city, became overcrowded and unreliable. The the city began planning for automobile-based transportation systems, anticipating the post-war boom in car ownership that would reshape American urban development. Downtown San Diego transformed into a bustling military and industrial center. Sailors on shore leave mixed with defense workers and their families, creating a vibrant street life that contrasted sharply with the city's pre-war quietude. The Gaslamp Quarter became famous throughout the Pacific Fleet as a place where servicemen could find entertainment, companionship, and brief escape from the pressures of wartime service. But the war also brought tensions and tragedies that revealed the darker aspects of rapid social change. The Zoot Suit riots of 1943, while centered in Los Angeles, had echoes in San Diego as military personnel clashed with young Mexican-American men whose distinctive clothing was seen as unpatriotic or provocative. The internment of Japanese Americans created a particularly painful chapter in San Diego's wartime history. Families who had been part of the community for generations were forced to abandon their homes and businesses, leaving behind a cultural and economic void that would never be completely filled. Despite these social tensions, San Diego's war effort was remarkably successful. The city's shipyards launched vessels at record pace, while the aircraft plants supplied planes that played crucial roles in Pacific theater operations. Local businesses adapted quickly to serve military needs, creating supply networks that stretched from San Diego to combat zones throughout the Pacific. The end of the war in 1945 brought both celebration and uncertainty. Would San Diego's wartime boom collapse as defense contracts were cancelled and military personnel returned home? Would the city be able to maintain the economic vitality that had transformed it from a regional centre into a major metropolitan area? The immediate post-war period did bring significant challenges. Aircraft production declined dramatically as military orders were cancelled, forcing layoffs at plants that had employed tens of thousands of workers. Some defense workers left San Diego, seeking opportunities in other cities or returning to their pre-war homes. But San Diego's leaders had learned important lessons from previous boom and bust cycles. Instead of simply hoping that wartime prosperity would continue, they actively planned for economic diversification and sustainable growth that could weather changes in defense spending. The city's climate and lifestyle advantages, which had been somewhat overlooked during the intense focus on wartime production, again became important selling points for attracting new residents and businesses. Veterans who had been stationed in San Diego during the war returned with their families, drawn by memories of the city's pleasant weather and relaxed atmosphere. The GI Bill provided educational opportunities that helped transform San Diego into a more educated and skilled community. Veterans used their benefits to attend colleges and universities, creating demand for expanded higher education facilities that would eventually include major research universities. Tourism, which had been largely suspended during the war, resumed with unprecedented enthusiasm as Americans enjoyed newfound prosperity and leisure time. San Diego's beaches, parks, and attractions drew visitors from throughout the country, establishing the foundation for what would become one of the world's major tourist destinations. The aerospace industry, rather than disappearing with the end of military aircraft production, adapted to serve the emerging commercial aviation market and the growing demand for military systems during the Cold War. Companies like Convair, the successor to Consolidated Aircraft, developed new technologies and products that kept San Diego at the forefront of aviation innovation. The Korean War, beginning in 1950, brought renewed defense spending that helped stabilize San Diego's economy during the transition from wartime to peacetime production. The city's military installations again played crucial roles in supporting Pacific operations, demonstrating their continued strategic importance. But perhaps the most significant development of the early post-war period was the beginning of San Diego's transformation into a center for scientific research and technological innovation. The establishment of research institutions like the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the Salk Institute attracted scientists and researchers who would help create entirely new industries. The University of California established a San Diego campus in 1960, creating an anchor for the development of high-technology industries that would eventually rival the traditional aerospace and military sectors. The university's emphasis on science and engineering attracted faculty and students who would become entrepreneurs and innovators in emerging fields like electronics and biotechnology. By the 1960s, San Diego had successfully navigated the transition from wartime boom to sustainable peacetime growth. The city's population had stabilized at around 570,000 residents, making it one of the 10 largest cities in the United States. More importantly, the economy had diversified beyond its traditional dependence on military spending. The completion of major infrastructure projects during this period provided the foundation for continued expansion. The construction of Interstate 5 and Interstate 8 connected San Diego more effectively to Los Angeles and the rest of California, while improvements to Lindbergh Field made air travel more convenient for both business and leisure travelers. Water supply systems were expanded through participation in massive state and federal water projects that brought Colorado River and Northern California water to Southern California. These engineering achievements removed the constraints that had limited San Diego's growth throughout its history. The 1960s also saw the emergence of San Diego as a cultural and educational center. The establishment of the San Diego Symphony, the expansion of Balboa Park's museums, and the growth of the University of California, San Diego created cultural amenities that attracted educated professionals and enhanced the city's quality of life. Real estate development during this period was more carefully planned than in previous decades, with greater attention paid to preserving natural landscapes and creating communities that enhanced rather than detracted from San Diego's environmental advantages. The development of communities like Rancho Bernardo and Carmel Valley established new models for suburban growth that balanced density with open space. The civil rights movement brought important changes to San Diego's social fabric. The city's relatively small African American and Latino populations had faced significant discrimination in housing, employment, and education. But civil rights activism and federal legislation began to break down some of these barriers. The establishment of programs like the Community Relations Service and fair housing initiatives helped integrate San Diego's neighborhoods and schools. Though progress was often slow and sometimes met with resistance from established residents. Immigration patterns also began to change during the 1960s as new federal legislation eliminated national origin quotas and created opportunities for people from Asia, Latin America, and other regions to settle in the United States. San Diego's location near the Mexican border and its growing reputation as a desirable place to live attracted immigrants who would contribute to the city's economic and cultural diversity. The Vietnam War brought both opportunities and challenges to San Diego. Military spending increased significantly as the city's bases supported operations in Southeast Asia, but the war also created social tensions as anti-war protests and cultural conflicts divided the community. The presence of large numbers of military personnel returning from combat created social problems that the city struggled to address. Veterans services, mental health programs, and job training initiatives became increasingly important as the community dealt with the human costs of prolonged military conflict. Despite these challenges, the late 1960s and early 1970s saw continued growth and development that established San Diego as one of California's major metropolitan areas. The city's population exceeded 700,000 by 1970, while the broader metropolitan area approached 1.5 million residents. The completion of major civic projects, like the San Diego Stadium and the expansion of the convention center, demonstrated the city's growing confidence and ambitions. These facilities attracted major sporting events and conventions that enhanced San Diego's national profile and contributed to the growing tourism industry. The environmental movement of the 1970s had particular resonance in San Diego, where residents could see the effects of rapid growth on the natural landscapes that had originally attracted them to the area. The establishment of strict coastal protection laws and the creation of open space preserves reflected growing awareness that development needed to be balanced with environmental protection. The energy crises of the 1970s challenged San Diego's automobile-dependent development patterns and spurred interest in alternative transportation and energy systems. The city began experimenting with trolley systems and other forms of public transportation that could reduce dependence on private automobiles. Economic diversification accelerated during the 1970s as San Diego successfully attracted industries beyond aerospace and defense. The growth of tourism, biotechnology, and telecommunications created a more balanced economy that was less vulnerable to changes in federal spending priorities. The establishment of major research institutions and the expansion of higher education created what would later be recognized as one of the most important concentrations of scientific and technological expertise on the West Coast. The synergies between universities, research institutions, and private companies began generating innovations that would drive economic growth for decades to come. As San Diego entered the 1980s, the city had completed its transformation from a military-dependent regional center into a diversified metropolitan area with national and international significance. The foundation had been laid for the emergence of what would become one of America's most successful and dynamic urban regions. But this success would bring new challenges that would test everything San Diego had learned about managing growth, preserving environmental quality, and maintaining the lifestyle advantages that made the city attractive to residents and businesses alike. The next phase of development would require even more sophisticated approaches to urban planning and economic development. The 1980s arrived in San Diego like a perfect wave breaking over the shores of Mission Beach, bringing with it a surge of prosperity and innovation that would reshape the city's identity once again. This decade would witness San Diego's emergence as a genuine Pacific powerhouse, a transformation so complete that visitors from the 1970s would barely recognize the sleepy Navy town they had once known. The biotechnology revolution began quietly in laboratories and research facilities scattered across the mesas north of downtown, but its impact would prove to be as transformative as the arrival of the railroad a century earlier. Scientists and entrepreneurs who had been drawn to San Diego by its research institutions and quality of life began creating companies that would pioneer entirely new approaches to medicine, agriculture, and industrial processes. The establishment of companies like Hybritech and Genentech's San Diego operations marked the beginning of what would become one of the world's most important biotechnology clusters. These companies attracted venture capital investment from around the globe, creating a new economy based on intellectual property and scientific innovation, rather than traditional manufacturing or military contracts. The success of early biotech companies created a demonstration effect that attracted additional entrepreneurs and investors to San Diego. The combination of world-class research institutions, venture capital availability, and an attractive living environment proved irresistible to scientists and business leaders seeking to commercialize new discoveries. Real estate development accelerated throughout the decade as the growing technology sector created demand for office space, research facilities, and housing for highly educated workers. The development of areas like Sorrento Valley and University City established new models for technology-oriented development that integrated research facilities with commercial and residential uses. Downtown San Diego underwent a renaissance during the 1980s that reversed decades of decline and neglect. The construction of Horton Plaza, a revolutionary shopping and entertainment complex designed by architect John Jerde, demonstrated that creative urban design could attract visitors and investment to previously deteriorating areas. The Gaslamp Quarter, which had fallen into disrepair after World War II, was revitalized through historic preservation efforts that transformed the area into one of California's most successful urban entertainment districts. The restoration of Victorian-era buildings created a unique atmosphere that attracted restaurants, nightclubs, and cultural venues that drew visitors from throughout Southern California. The convention industry emerged as a major economic driver during this period, as San Diego's combination of climate, facilities, and attractions made it an ideal destination for business meetings and trade shows. The expansion of the San Diego Convention Center created thousands of jobs and generated millions of dollars in visitor spending that supported hotels, restaurants, and other service businesses. Tourism evolved beyond its traditional focus on beaches and attractions to encompass business travel, cultural events, and specialized interests like golf and sailing. The development of resort hotels in areas like La Jolla and Carlsbad established San Diego as a destination for luxury travelers, while improvements to budget accommodations ensured that the city remained accessible to families and young people. The military presence, while still important, began to represent a smaller percentage of the overall economy as other sectors grew rapidly. The end of the Cold War reduced defense spending, but San Diego's military installations adapted by focusing on training, research and development, and support for overseas operations. Naval facilities evolved to serve new missions that emphasized technology and specialized capabilities rather than simple force projection. The establishment of research and development facilities attracted military contractors and civilian companies that specialized in advanced systems and technologies. The aerospace industry, which had been a cornerstone of San Diego's economy since World War II, faced significant challenges as defense spending declined and commercial aviation markets became more competitive. However, many aerospace companies successfully transitioned to serve emerging markets in communication satellites, space exploration, and civilian applications. The development of the telecommunications industry during the 1980s created new opportunities for companies with expertise in electronic systems and signal processing. San Diego's concentration of engineering talent and its proximity to major markets made it an attractive location for companies developing cellular telephone systems, satellite communications, and other emerging technologies. Immigration patterns continued to evolve as the city's growing economy attracted workers from throughout the world. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 created opportunities for undocumented workers to achieve legal status, while the city's technology companies actively recruited skilled workers from countries with strong educational systems. The Latino population grew significantly during the decade, driven both by immigration and natural population growth. This demographic change influenced everything from retail patterns to political representation, as Latino communities became more organized and politically active. And Asian immigration also increased substantially, particularly from countries like Taiwan, Korea, and the Philippines. Many Asian immigrants brought capital and entrepreneurial experience that contributed to the development of new businesses and industries, particularly in technology and international trade. The cultural landscape of San Diego was transformed by this increasing diversity. Ethnic restaurants, cultural festivals, and community organizations proliferated throughout the metropolitan area, creating a cosmopolitan atmosphere that enhanced the city's appeal to educated professionals and international businesses. Higher education expansion accelerated during the 1980s as the University of California, San Diego grew into a major research institution, and San Diego State University expanded its programs and facilities. The presence of these universities created a steady supply of educated workers and provided research capabilities that supported technology development. Private colleges and universities also established facilities in San Diego, attracted by the city's growing reputation as an educational center. These institutions contributed to the intellectual infrastructure that made San Diego attractive to knowledge-based industries. The development of continuing education and professional training programs helped existing workers adapt to changing economic conditions. As manufacturing jobs declined and service and technology jobs increased, educational institutions played crucial roles in helping workers acquire new skills. Environmental consciousness grew significantly during the decade as residents became more aware of the impacts of rapid growth on air quality, water resources, and natural habitats. The establishment of strict development standards and environmental protection measures reflected growing political support for balancing economic growth with environmental preservation. The California Coastal Commission's influence over development decisions ensured that beachfront areas remained accessible to the public while limiting the environmental impacts of new construction. These policies helped preserve the natural beauty that made San Diego attractive to residents and visitors. Water supply issues became increasingly important as population growth outpaced the capacity of existing systems. The Metropolitan Water District's expansion of aqueduct systems and the development of water recycling programs demonstrated the regional cooperation necessary to support continued growth. Transportation infrastructure struggled to keep pace with population and economic growth. The completion of additional freeway segments helped improve mobility, but increasing traffic congestion became a persistent problem that influenced both business location decisions and residential development patterns. The San Diego trolley system, which began operations in 1981, represented an innovative approach to urban transportation that connected downtown San Diego with communities in the South Bay. The success of the initial line led to plans for expansion that would eventually create a comprehensive rail transit network. Air transportation capacity expanded significantly with improvements to Lindbergh Field and the development of additional airports in outlying areas. The growth of international air service reflected San Diego's increasing connections to global markets, particularly in the Pacific Rim. Political leadership during the 1980s focused on managing growth while preserving quality of life, a balancing act that required sophisticated planning and considerable political skill. Mayor Maureen O'Connor and other civic leaders worked to attract high-quality development while maintaining the environmental and cultural amenities that made San Diego distinctive. Regional cooperation became increasingly important as growth spread beyond San Diego's city limits into surrounding communities. The establishment of regional planning agencies and the coordination of infrastructure investments reflected growing recognition that the metropolitan area needed to function as an integrated economic unit. The relationship with Mexico became more important as both countries experienced economic growth that increased cross-border trade and investment. The development of maquiladora manufacturing facilities in Tijuana created economic opportunities on both sides of the border, while highlighting the need for improved border infrastructure. Cultural exchanges with Mexico intensified as business relationships deepened and transportation connections improved. The sister city relationship with Tijuana evolved from a symbolic gesture into a practical partnership that facilitated trade, tourism, and cultural cooperation. By the end of the 1980s, San Diego had established itself As one of California's most dynamic metropolitan areas, with a diversified economy that was less dependent on any single industry or employer than at any previous time in the city's history. The population had grown to more than 1 million within the city limits, while the broader metropolitan area approached 2.5 million residents. The foundation had been laid for San Diego's emergence as a truly global city, with economic connections that stretched around the Pacific Rim and beyond. The combination of research institutions, technology companies, military facilities, and tourism infrastructure created a unique economic ecosystem that would continue to evolve and adapt to changing global conditions. But success brought new challenges that would test the city's ability to manage growth while preserving the qualities that made San Diego attractive in the first place. Traffic congestion, housing affordability, and environmental protection would become increasingly important issues as the city entered the final decade of the 20th century. The 1990s would bring both the greatest opportunities and the most serious challenges in San Diego's modern history. The end of the Cold War would force another economic transformation, while rapid population growth would strain infrastructure and threatened environmental quality. The city's response to these challenges would determine whether San Diego could maintain its position as one of America's most desirable places to live and work. The decade began with uncertainty as defense spending declined and several major military installations faced closure or downsizing. The closure of Naval Training Center San Diego and the reduction of operations at other facilities created immediate economic challenges as thousands of military and civilian workers lost their jobs. But San Diego's leaders had learned from previous economic transitions that crisis often created opportunity for those prepared to act decisively. The closure of military facilities freed up valuable land near downtown San Diego for redevelopment, creating opportunities for projects that would have been impossible under different circumstances. The conversion of Naval Training Center San Diego into Liberty Station represented one of the most successful military-base conversions in American history. The 361-acre site was transformed into a mixed-use development that combined residential housing, office space, retail facilities, and cultural venues while preserving the historic character of many original buildings. The redevelopment of former military lands provided space for expanding industries and helped accommodate population growth without requiring development of environmentally sensitive areas. The success of these conversion projects demonstrated that thoughtful planning could turn potential problems into community assets. The technology sector continued to expand rapidly throughout the 1990s, driven by innovations in telecommunications, computer software, and biotechnology. The growth of the internet created new opportunities for San Diego companies that had expertise in communications technology and digital systems. Qualcomm emerged as one of the most successful San Diego technology companies, developing wireless communication technologies that would become essential to the global telecommunications industry. The company's success attracted additional investment and talent to San Diego's technology sector, while demonstrating the potential for local companies to achieve global prominence. The biotechnology industry matured during the decade as early companies achieved commercial success and attracted additional investment from pharmaceutical companies and venture capital funds. The establishment of major research facilities by companies like Pfizer and Merck created thousands of high-paying jobs, while enhancing San Diego's reputation as a center for medical research. The development of Torrey Pines Mesa as a specialized biotechnology district created one of the world's most important concentrations of life sciences companies. The proximity of research institutions, commercial laboratories, and manufacturing facilities created synergies that accelerated innovation and commercialization of new discoveries. Real estate development during the 1990s reflected both the opportunities and challenges created by rapid economic and population growth. Housing prices increased significantly as demand from technology workers and retirees outpaced the supply of new construction, creating affordability problems for middle-class families and service workers. The development of master-planned communities like Rancho Santa Fe and Carmel Valley established new standards for suburban design that emphasized environmental preservation and quality of life amenities. These communities attracted affluent residents who demanded high-quality schools, recreational facilities, and cultural amenities. Downtown San Diego experienced a renaissance during the decade as residential development transformed formerly commercial and industrial areas into vibrant urban neighborhoods. The construction of high-rise condominiums and apartment buildings brought thousands of new residents to the urban core, creating demand for restaurants, shops, and entertainment venues. The Gas Lamp Quarter evolved from a redevelopment project into one of California's most successful urban entertainment districts, attracting millions of visitors annually and generating hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity. The area's success inspired additional downtown development projects that further enhanced the urban core's vitality. Cultural development accelerated as the city's growing wealth and sophistication created demand for world-class arts and entertainment facilities. The expansion of museums in Balboa Park, the construction of new performing arts venues, and the establishment of annual festivals enhanced San Diego's reputation as a cultural center. The San Diego Zoo and Wild Animal Park achieved international recognition for their conservation efforts and innovative exhibits, attracting millions of visitors while contributing to global wildlife preservation efforts. These institutions became symbols of San Diego's commitment to environmental stewardship and scientific excellence. Sports played an increasingly important role in San Diego's identity and economy during the 1990s. The success of the San Diego Chargers in reaching Super Bowl 29 brought national attention to the city, while the establishment of Major League Soccer's San Diego team created additional entertainment options for residents and visitors. The development of golf courses and tennis facilities throughout the metropolitan area enhanced San Diego's reputation as a destination for recreational sports. The perfect climate and diverse topography made the region ideal for outdoor activities that attracted both residents and tourists seeking active lifestyles. International trade grew significantly during the decade as San Diego's location and transportation infrastructure made it an ideal gateway for trade with Mexico and other Pacific Rim countries. The North American Free Trade Agreement created new opportunities for cross-border commerce while highlighting the need for improved border infrastructure. The development of specialized trade facilities and the expansion of San Diego's port capabilities positioned the city to benefit from growing Pacific trade. The establishment of foreign trade zones and customs facilities streamlined international commerce while attracting distribution and logistics companies to the region. Immigration continued to reshape San Diego's demographics and culture during the 1990s. The Latino population grew to represent nearly 1/4 of the metropolitan area's residents, while Asian immigration contributed to increasing cultural and economic diversity. The establishment of ethnic business districts and cultural centers throughout the metropolitan area reflected growing political influence and economic success among immigrant communities. These developments enhanced San Diego's international connections while creating new opportunities for cultural exchange and economic cooperation. Educational institutions expanded rapidly during the decade to serve the growing population and economy. The University of California, San Diego emerged as one of the nation's leading research universities, while San Diego State University developed nationally recognized programs in business, engineering, and international studies. The establishment of specialized training institutes and continuing education programs helped workers adapt to changing economic conditions. The rapid pace of technological change required constant learning and skill development, making educational institutions increasingly important to economic competitiveness. Public infrastructure investment accelerated during the 1990s as regional leaders recognized the need to accommodate continued growth while maintaining quality of life. The expansion of freeway systems, the development of additional transit options, and improvements to water and sewer systems required unprecedented levels of coordination and investment. The completion of additional trolley lines extended rail transit service to communities throughout the southern and eastern parts of the metropolitan area. These investments reduced automobile dependence while providing alternatives for residents who could not afford private transportation. Environmental protection became increasingly sophisticated during the decade as scientific understanding of ecosystem relationships improved and political support for conservation measures strengthened. The establishment of habitat conservation programs and the creation of regional open space systems demonstrated growing commitment to balancing development with environmental preservation. The Multiple Species Conservation Program, developed jointly by San Diego County and federal agencies, created a comprehensive approach to protecting endangered species while accommodating necessary development. This innovative program became a model for other regions facing similar challenges. As the 20th century drew to a close, San Diego had established itself as one of America's most successful metropolitan areas. With a diversified economy, world-class institutions, and an unparalleled quality of life, the city's population had grown to approximately 1.2 million, while the broader metropolitan area exceeded 2.8 million residents. The foundation had been laid for continued growth and prosperity in the 21st century, but success had also created new challenges that would require innovative solutions. Housing affordability, traffic congestion, and environmental protection would become increasingly important issues as the city continued to attract new residents and businesses. The transformation from Navy port to Pacific powerhouse was nearly complete, but the story of San Diego's evolution would continue as the city adapted to changing global conditions and emerging opportunities. The next chapter would bring both unprecedented prosperity and new challenges that would test everything the city had learned about managing growth while preserving the qualities that made it one of America's most desirable places to live and work. Of America's most desirable places to live and work. The dawn of the 21st century found San Diego basking in the glow of unprecedented success, yet poised on the edge of transformations that would challenge every assumption about urban development and economic growth. The dot-com boom that swept across California in the late 1990s reached San Diego with particular intensity, as the city's telecommunications and software companies suddenly found themselves at the center of a technological revolution that promised to reshape global commerce. Qualcomm's development of CDMA wireless technology positioned San Diego at the forefront of the mobile communications revolution. As cell phones evolved from luxury items to essential tools, the company's licensing revenues created enormous wealth that rippled throughout the regional economy. Engineers and executives who had joined Qualcomm as a small startup suddenly found themselves millionaires, creating a new class of affluent residents who would reshape local real estate markets and consumer spending patterns. The biotech sector experienced similar explosive growth as the completion of the Human Genome Project opened new possibilities for drug development and medical treatments. Companies like Illumina and Neurocrene Biosciences attracted billions in investment capital while establishing San Diego as one of the world's premier centers for genomic research and pharmaceutical development. Venture capital firms established offices throughout San Diego, to be closer to emerging companies, creating an ecosystem of innovation that attracted entrepreneurs from around the world. The combination of research universities, established companies, and available capital created conditions that fostered rapid commercialization of scientific discoveries. Real estate prices soared as technology wealth competed with traditional military and tourism dollars for limited housing inventory. Coastal communities like Del Mar and Solana Beach saw median home prices exceed $1 million, while even modest homes in formerly affordable neighborhoods commanded prices that would have seemed impossible just a decade earlier. The housing boom created both opportunities and challenges for long-time residents. Many families who had owned homes for decades suddenly found themselves sitting on enormous paper wealth, but rising property taxes and cost of living made it difficult for their children to remain in San Diego. The city began experiencing the early stages of a workforce housing crisis that would become increasingly acute in subsequent years. Downtown San Diego's transformation accelerated during the early 2000s as high-rise condominium towers began reshaping the skyline. The conversion of former industrial and commercial buildings into residential lofts attracted young professionals who wanted to live within walking distance of restaurants, entertainment venues, and employment centers. The completion of Petco Park in 2004 marked a milestone in downtown revitalization efforts. The baseball stadium's design emphasized integration with surrounding neighborhoods rather than isolation behind parking lots, creating a model for sports facilities that enhanced rather than disrupted urban development patterns. The stadium's success in attracting visitors and spurring additional development demonstrated the potential for carefully planned public investments to catalyze private sector activity. Hotels, restaurants, and residential projects sprouted in the surrounding area, creating a critical mass of activity that transformed downtown from a primarily daytime business district into a 24-hour urban environment. Tourism evolved beyond traditional beach and attraction visits to encompass business travel, convention attendance, and specialized interests like craft brewing and culinary experiences. San Diego's emergence as a craft beer capital attracted visitors who came specifically to experience local breweries and restaurants, creating new economic opportunities while enhancing the city's cultural reputation. The convention industry continued to expand as meeting planners discovered that San Diego's climate allowed for year-round outdoor events and activities that were impossible in most other major cities. The expansion of convention facilities and the development of additional hotel capacity positioned San Diego to compete for the largest trade shows and corporate meetings. Immigration patterns shifted during the early 2000s as economic opportunities attracted highly educated workers from countries throughout the Pacific Rim. Indian software engineers, Chinese researchers, and Korean entrepreneurs joined established Latino and European immigrant communities, creating unprecedented cultural diversity that influenced everything from cuisine to religious practices. The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 had profound impacts on San Diego's military installations and border communities. Security concerns led to increased military spending and expanded homeland security operations, but also created complications for cross-border trade and travel that had become increasingly important to the regional economy. Border infrastructure improvements accelerated as both security needs and trade volumes required expanded capacity. The development of additional border crossing facilities and the implementation of new security technologies created opportunities for San Diego companies specializing in surveillance and communication systems. Military installations adapted to new missions focused on homeland security, counter-terrorism, and support for overseas operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. The wars created demand for specialized equipment and services that benefited San Diego defense contractors while bringing additional federal spending to the region. The dot-com crash of 2001 demonstrated that San Diego's technology sector, while more diversified than Silicon Valley's, was still vulnerable to speculative bubbles and market volatility. Several prominent companies failed or were acquired at significant losses, while unemployment in technology sectors increased substantially. However, the biotech industry proved more resilient than telecommunications and software companies, as pharmaceutical development, timelines, and regulatory requirements insulated the sector from short-term market fluctuations. The continued growth of life sciences companies helped offset job losses in other technology sectors. Real estate markets remained strong despite the technology downturn, as low interest rates and continued population growth sustained demand for both residential and commercial properties. The Federal Reserve's monetary policies designed to stimulate economic recovery had the unintended consequence of inflating asset prices throughout California. The mid-2000s brought another wave of speculative real estate investment, as easy credits and relaxed lending standards created conditions for unprecedented price appreciation. Condominiums that had sold for $300,000 in 2000 commanded prices exceeding $800,000 by 2005, creating apparent wealth that supported consumer spending and additional construction. Construction employment reached record levels as developers rushed to meet demand for housing, office space, and retail facilities. Cranes dotted the skyline from downtown San Diego to suburban communities throughout the county, creating a landscape of constant change and apparent prosperity. The housing boom attracted construction workers and real estate professionals from throughout the country, temporarily swelling the population and creating additional demand for services and infrastructure. Traffic congestion reached crisis levels as transportation systems designed for a much smaller population struggled to accommodate daily commuting patterns. Water supply issues became increasingly critical as population growth and development outpaced the expansion of delivery systems. Drought conditions in the Colorado River Basin and Northern California highlighted San Diego's dependence on imported water and spurred interest in alternative sources like desalination and water recycling. The completion of the Carlsbad desalination plant represented a major step toward water independence, though the high costs of desalinated water raised questions about the long-term sustainability of continued growth. Environmental concerns about energy consumption and ocean impacts generated ongoing debates about the role of desalination in regional water planning. Cross-border relationships with Tijuana continued to evolve as both cities experienced rapid growth and economic development. The expansion of maquiladora manufacturing created opportunities for San Diego companies to participate in supply chains that took advantage of lower Mexican labor costs while maintaining proximity to American markets and technical expertise. Cultural exchanges intensified as improved transportation and communication links made cross-border travel and commerce more convenient. The establishment of joint economic development initiatives and cultural festivals reflected growing recognition that the two cities constituted a single metropolitan region despite the international border. Higher education institutions expanded rapidly during the decade to serve growing populations and emerging economic sectors. The University of California, San Diego developed world-class programs in bioengineering and computer science, while San Diego State University strengthened its business and international programs to serve regional economic needs. Private universities and specialized institutes established campuses throughout the metropolitan area, creating educational opportunities that helped workers adapt to changing economic conditions. The presence of multiple research institutions created synergies that enhanced the region's capacity for innovation and technology transfer. Environmental protection efforts became more sophisticated as scientific understanding of ecosystem relationships improved and regulatory frameworks adapted to address cumulative impacts of development. The San Diego Association of Governments developed regional planning strategies that attempted to balance growth accommodation with habitat preservation and air quality protection. The Multiple Species Conservation Program achieved national recognition as an innovative approach to endangered species protection that provided certainty for developers while creating large-scale habitat preserves. The program's success demonstrated that environmental protection and economic development could be compatible when properly planned and coordinated. Climate change concerns began influencing development patterns and infrastructure investments as scientific evidence accumulated about rising sea levels, changing precipitation patterns, and increased wildfire risks. The state's Global Warming Solutions Act created new requirements for greenhouse gas reduction that affected everything from transportation planning to building design standards. As the decade progressed, San Diego had evolved into a truly global city with economic connections spanning the Pacific Rim and beyond. The combination of research institutions, technology companies, military facilities, and international trade infrastructure created a unique economic ecosystem that attracted investment and talent from around the world. But the seeds of the next major crisis were already being planted in the speculative real estate markets and unsustainable lending practices that would soon bring the longest economic expansion in American history to a dramatic end. The housing bubble that had created enormous apparent wealth would soon collapse, testing once again San Diego's ability to adapt and reinvent itself in the face of economic adversity. The financial crisis that began in 2007 would force another fundamental reassessment of growth strategies and economic priorities. The city that had successfully navigated previous booms and busts would face its greatest economic challenge since the Great Depression, requiring all the resilience and adaptability that had characterized San Diego's evolution from Spanish outpost to Pacific powerhouse. Yet the foundation remained solid. The diversified economy, world-class institutions, and unmatched natural advantages that had sustained San Diego through previous challenges would again provide the basis for recovery and continued growth. The next chapter of the city's remarkable story was about to begin, carrying forward the lessons learned through centuries of transformation while adapting to the demands of an increasingly complex and interconnected world. The financial crisis that struck in 2007 hit San Diego with the force of a Pacific storm, sweeping away the speculative wealth that had transformed the region's economy and revealing the fragile foundations beneath years of apparent prosperity. Housing prices that had seemed to defy gravity suddenly plummeted, leaving thousands of homeowners underwater on mortgages that exceeded their properties' rapidly declining values. Construction sites throughout the metropolitan area fell silent as developers abandoned projects they could no longer finance. Half-built condominiums stood like concrete skeletons against the San Diego sky, monuments to the hubris that had convinced investors that real estate prices could rise indefinitely in a region where geography limited developable land. The collapse was particularly devastating because it struck multiple sectors simultaneously. Technology companies that had expanded rapidly during the boom found themselves overextended as venture capital dried up and consumer spending declined. Even the biotech sector, which had weathered previous downturns relatively well, faced funding shortages as pharmaceutical companies postponed research investments and clinical trials. Unemployment soared to levels not seen since the early 1990s defense cutbacks, but this time the pain was distributed more broadly across economic sectors. Real estate agents, construction workers, mortgage brokers, and retail employees all found themselves competing for a shrinking number of available jobs. Local government budgets collapsed as property tax revenues plummeted and sales tax collections declined with reduced consumer spending. The city was forced to cut services, delay infrastructure projects, and reduce staffing levels just when residents most needed public support and assistance. Yet beneath the immediate crisis, San Diego's fundamental advantages remained intact. The climate was still perfect, the harbour was still magnificent, and the research institutions continued producing innovations that would drive future economic growth. The question was whether the city could once again reinvent itself, drawing on the resilience that had sustained it through previous periods of upheaval and transformation. The recovery began slowly, almost imperceptibly, as entrepreneurs and investors began recognizing opportunities in the wreckage of the speculative bubble. Real estate prices, while still declining, had fallen enough to make housing affordable for young professionals and families who had been priced out during the boom years. Technology companies that had survived the downturn found themselves in stronger competitive positions as weaker rivals disappeared and talented workers became available at more reasonable costs. The biotech sector began consolidating around the most promising companies and technologies, creating a more sustainable foundation for future growth. And so, we reach the end of our journey through San Diego's extraordinary transformation, a story that spans from Kumeyaay villages to gleaming biotechnology campuses, from Spanish missions to naval powerhouses. What began as a remote outpost on the edge of the known world has evolved into one of America's most dynamic and influential cities, a place where innovation meets tradition and where the Pacific future continues to unfold. Today's San Diego stands as testament to the power of adaptation and reinvention. The same harbour that welcomed Spanish galleons now hosts aircraft carriers and cruise ships. The mesas where cattle once grazed now house research laboratories developing cures for diseases that plagued previous generations. The beaches that attracted Hollywood stars in the 1920s now welcome millions of visitors from around the globe, drawn by the same perfect climate and natural beauty that has captivated people for centuries. The transformation from Navy port to Pacific powerhouse was never inevitable, but it was made possible by the vision and determination of countless individuals who refused to accept limitations imposed by geography, circumstance, or convention. From the Kumeyaay who first recognized this land's potential to the modern entrepreneurs building tomorrow's technologies, San Diego's story has been written by people who dared to imagine something greater. As we look toward the future, San Diego faces new challenges that will test everything the city has learned about balancing growth with preservation, prosperity with sustainability, innovation with tradition. Yet if history has taught us anything about America's finest city, it is that San Diego possesses an almost infinite capacity for renewal and transformation. The next chapter of this remarkable story is still being written, and it promises to be every bit as extraordinary as the journey that brought us here.